that gave me the opportunity to pause and reflect about what's next. And I really started to think about like, what's my long-term vision, like 30 years from now.
Wow.
And so I went to visit my uncle and stayed in a town in Florida with everyone who was over 80, and just did a lot of reflection. And I wrote down my vision statement, my values, and like my goals for the year, and also my goals for like the next 30 years. And
Welcome to the Bourbon Friday Show. I'm your host, Nick Niehaus, and today we are talking to Charli Cooksey, who is the CEO and founder of WEPOWER. So Charli, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. So to start off, why don't you tell us a little bit about WEPOWER?
Sure. So WEPOWER is a year and like 2 or 3 months old, so we're babies, but we've been busy since our inception. So our mission is to partner with Black and Latinx communities as they activate their power to create the change they want to see. And so a few things there. When we define power, for us it means the ability to act and or self-determine. So it's about building power so that more communities have the ability to access an excellent education or have the ability to live life free of poverty. And when we talk about redesigning systems, we're looking at education, health, justice, and economic systems because we see those doing more harm than good to communities of color daily. And we see that happening in a very interconnected way. And so we believe that there's a huge opportunity for people who have been impacted by these systems to have seats at the table to design better solutions that work for all of us.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, it's a wonderful mission.
Thank you.
So you're still pretty new, as you mentioned, right? So just past the 1 year mark. So first of all, congrats on that.
Thank you.
It's a big milestone. So tell me about the origins. I mean, how did you decide to start it?
So let's see. I returned to St. Louis, so St. Louis is my hometown, in 2009 to join a program called Teach for America. I'm going way back.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, we'll start at the very beginning.
Yeah, that's like 10 years ago. And I started an education nonprofit with 3 other Teach for America members during my second year in the classroom. And that was a really amazing journey. And we supported scholars from 7th grade through college completion.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's one of the amazing parents right there. I know no one can see her, but she's cool.
Behind the scenes, yeah.
And so we grew the organization and ended up merging with a much larger organization in town. And so that gave me the opportunity to pause and reflect about what's next. And I really started to think about like, what's my long-term vision, like 30 years from now.
Wow.
And so I went to visit my uncle and stayed in a town in Florida with everyone who was over 80, and just did a lot of reflection. And I wrote down my vision statement, my values, and like my goals for the year, and also my goals for like the next 30 years. And I had some friends who met up at a co-working space just to catch up and talk about what they had been up to, what I was up to, and it just so happened that they were actually interested in learning about what I wanted to do next. And what I wanted to do next was aligned to what they wanted to do next. And so we just started having more and more conversations, and it got to a point where it evolved to like WEPOWER being a tangible enough idea that it could be transformed into an organization. And so hit the ground running with doing a lot of research and like listening to community and like trying to find other models that existed. And I was getting ready for a pilot in 2017, and then reached out to an organization called Forward Through Ferguson to partner on the pilot because there was so much alignment, because we have a huge focus on policy change. And coincidentally, the same day that I reached out to Forward Through Ferguson was the same day that their founding executive director announced that she was moving to another opportunity. And so the conversation shifted from partnering to launch a pilot of WEPOWER to me serving as their interim executive director.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So WEPOWER got put on hold for about a year, and then we finally got a chance to launch it last April. and it was a crazy journey because I was still full-time at another organization, but it happened and things are going really well.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, I want to take a step back there to something you said a second ago. You talked about thinking in 30-year increments and having this kind of super long-term vision. And I think that's something a lot of people, can't even fathom. It's this idea of kind of understanding where you want to kind of guide yourself long-term. So on that point, I mean, do you have any, and I'm curious, and I don't know that I have that kind of clarity. So what are some of the tips you'd give somebody that's looking to think kind of bigger picture like that maybe?
I don't know if I necessarily have tips. I think I've always been into like the idea of futurism and thinking about what's possible, and really being inspired by possibility versus like reality, because reality is kind of depressing.
Right now, right?
And so I think one of my sort of inherent sort of guiding principles and values is being driven by vision and what's possible. And so I've always led with that. So I think generally speaking, a thought is like, what are the values that matter to you, like when it comes down to like a tough decision, whether it's a decision in the moment or a decision that you have to make down the road, thinking about what are those things that can help you make those tough decisions and leading from there. And then also thinking about like, what are my passions, what am I really good at, and what is a problem that needs to be solved in the world, and like looking at the intersection of those things to really consider like what role one can play, whether it's today or 30 years from now.
Very cool. All right. Well, I like the idea of putting aside reality for a minute, thinking a little bit more idealistically, right?
Not ignoring the reality, but being grounded in it and acknowledging it, but knowing that we have a responsibility to pursue a different future.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you mentioned one thing, which was focusing on policy, right? So when you got started with this and you were doing some research and talking to people, what were you finding were some of the policies that really needed to be adjusted?
Almost all of
everything,
them. So around the time that I was starting to like evaluate what was next was the same time that Mike Brown was killed, and right after the Ferguson uprising had kicked off. And then also at the same time, I was born and raised in North St. Louis City and still live there, and so that part of the region has a history that is influenced by racism, by poverty, by inequitable education systems. And so I've done a lot of listening to my neighbors and to my community members to understand what things matter to them most. And between that and hearing these like really clear and laser focused visions from my neighbors, and also they had a clear strategic plan on paper for what that could look like, and then seeing the tragedy of a young Black man being killed right after he graduated from high school, and all of the policies that intersected in really negative and harmful ways. And then also with my work at Inspire, seeing really brilliant students access great education systems, but still being impacted by things like parents being in and out of the incarceration system, things like navigating poverty and health issues, and realizing that like while education matters, like we have to look at all these other surrounding barriers.
Other parts to it, sure.
So really the policy piece, it's around education, health, justice, and economics, and how across all of those systems there's deeply flawed policies, from minimum wage to criminalizing poor folks when they can't afford to pay parking or traffic ticket. For example, the economic policies, there's actually a lot of core research that shows how much it takes to survive and live in a city based on how many people are in the household and based on the context of that region. And so for a one-parent, two-child household in St. Louis, it costs about almost $60,000 to be able to pay your bills, save a little amount of money, and like basically keep your head above water.
Yeah, sure.
And so like minimum wage doesn't...
It's not getting you there.
Yeah, there's no way. Even when we raise minimum wage to $12 or $13, there's no way that's enough money for a family to keep their head above water. So I think there's policies like that if we had community at the center creating the right solutions, we would have solutions that really work for everyone.
Interesting. So getting into maybe some of the specifics of these policies, I guess a good starting point would be, is there a good place to start maybe? Is there a particular area that you see as kind of having a domino effect on others, or is it all need to be shifted at once?
I think that it's really back to all of these systems need shifting, and they need shifting with urgency. And I think if I had a magic wand, we would like work with community to like tear all of them down and like build from the ground up, really thinking about what's possible. And like this work is happening every day. I think it's just a matter of us really amplifying and aligning to the good work that's happening already. So there's organizations like Action St. Louis and Arch City Defenders that are leading some really transformative work around reimagining and dismantling the prison industrial complex and the way that we navigate criminal justice. And there's amazing work happening in terms of increasing minimum wage. So there are really good pockets of work that's happening. I think there's just a responsibility for all of us to become more aware of it and to really align our time and resources to it. And in terms of the work that we're focused on right now, it's really about K-12 education, early childhood education, and starting this fall, we'll be working with community members to really do a deep dive into economic injustices in St. Louis City, and work with them to figure out like what are the solutions that are will respond to challenges urgently, but also systemically.
Gotcha. Very cool. All right. Well, there's a lot to do, obviously.
A whole lot.
For those that are maybe looking to get involved, I mean, do you have any recommendations on how they can help?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that any St. Louisan can do is read the Ferguson Commission Report. So that has 189 recommendations across all types of sectors and areas, ranging from youth to economic development to housing, and that really grounds people in a shared context of how we got to where we are, and also like what are policy changes that can get us somewhere different. So I think that's always a fundamental read for anyone in St. Louis, and then from there figuring out like which of these policies and solutions most resonate with someone after they read that report, and then getting plugged into different networks from there. But more immediately and tied to WEPOWER, we have a few opportunities. So one is we're doing some really cool work aligned to early childhood education. And so we have 14 fellows, all from St. Louis City and County, who are deeply committed to reimagining early childhood education for a host of reasons. That could address like workforce development issues. It has the potential to decrease violent crimes. It has the potential to increase college enrollment and matriculation. And so there's a lot of like business cases and like social value to supporting early childhood education. And so our fellows are convening folks from across the region to develop solutions that can really make this a region that puts children first. And so October, we have an event coming up. We're inviting everyone to come and to provide feedback on the solutions they co-create with community. And then it's also a way for people to come and figure out what ways do they want to activate their networks and their power to create like transformative change around early childhood education. And then the other opportunity is we are soon launching entrepreneur support program called Elevate, and that is to support Black and Latinx entrepreneurs who are committed to St. Louis. So we're looking for entrepreneurs, folks who have companies that are in the IT, healthcare, food prep, and construction industries. And so you can go to our website to sign up to be the first to receive an application. And then we're also looking for the support team. So we're looking for mentors for the companies. We're looking for subject matter experts, so people like lawyers, accountants, HR professionals to provide office hours. And we're also looking for sponsors and investors. So there's a whole host of ways to get involved, because we know that change is driven by organized people and organized money, and it being organized towards a shared vision. So we know that part of that change has to be organizing money towards economic mobility and also towards the change that community wants to see.
Very cool. All right. Well, I'm sure we have some guests, we have some viewers that would love to participate. And we'd love to get involved as well. So let's talk about it after the show. We do have a couple minutes left, so we need to shift things a little bit and invite the founder of Bourbon Friday on, Eric. And he's going to tell us what he selected this week in terms of the bourbon. Yeah, what do we got here?
This is new Riff. This is the single barrel.
Okay.
And this is a barrel-proof bourbon. It's 111 points.
One of the strong ones. Okay.
One of the strong ones, but it's actually, Andrew and I were talking, pretty easy by comparison to most.
What does barrel proof mean?
It means that they did not dilute it when it came out of the barrel.
Oh, that means it's strong.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the reason I actually picked this is because, like you, the person that started this company started out in education. He was a teacher, and then he worked in his family business after that, and then started his own distillery. So very much from teacher to startup, I would consider you a nonprofit startup for sure. So I thought that fit kind of really well for you.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Eric, as always, thanks for joining us. Appreciate the choice of the bourbon this week. Charli, you don't have to finish the bourbon, by the way.
Thank you.
It's a little too strong.
No pressure.
No pressure.
I'm
there.
still recovering from that very small sip.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, thank you, of course, Charli, for joining us today. Really appreciate you being our guest.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And for those of you watching, thanks for tuning in. As always, we are here at Kovo, so we'd like to thank Kovo for hosting us for both the event and the show. Thank you to EQ for streaming every single week and providing us with that audience. And of course, I'd like to thank Vanessa Lobo, my business partner at Connects Marketing, for always making us look good in front of the camera, taking care of all the hard stuff for us. Thanks for watching, and join us again next Friday at 4:30 for the Bourbon Friday Show. We'll see you then.
Hey, thanks for watching. We truly hope you enjoyed it. Please like and share this episode, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. To stay up to date, follow us on social. We are at Bourbon Fridays on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. See you next time.